All right, everyone, buckle up because today we're going deep on something kind of strange.
Yeah, a little out there.
We're talking about, and I'm just going to say it, penis farts.
Yeah.
You sent us this scholarly article, like a real scientific paper on the phenomenon.
Yep.
And I got to admit, I thought it was a joke at first, but
It's definitely an attention grabber.
it is. But the more I thought about it, the more curious I got.
Well, that's the thing, right? You laugh, but then you realize there's some actual, anatomy and physiology involved.
Exactly. So, like, could this actually happen? That's what we're going to try to figure out today.
We're on the case.
So, what exactly is a penis fart for folks who might not be familiar?
Well, the term's a bit informal.
Yeah, a little crude.
But basically, we're talking about gas escaping through the urethra,
The urethra being.
the tube that carries urine out of the bladder.
Okay, so not where you'd typically expect gas to be coming from.
Right. We usually associate gas with, the other end of things.
Right, burps and farts,
Yeah.
the usual suspect.
Exactly. But this paper is suggesting that under certain circumstances, gas could take a detour, so to speak.
Down the wrong pipe, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does that even happen? Where's this rogue gas coming from?
Well, it all starts with the digestive system, which produces a surprising amount of gas every day.
More than we realize, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Most of it gets released in normal ways, but sometimes it can move around a bit more freely than we'd like.
Okay, so like even if you're not, actively farting, there's still gas hanging out in there.
Pretty much, yeah. And depending on body position, pressure changes, muscle contractions, things like that, that gas can end up in some unexpected places.
So even just like everyday movements could be pushing this gas around.
It's possible, yeah. That's what this paper is exploring.
Okay, so it's on the move. But how does it end up exiting through the front door, let's say?
Well, the paper outlines a few potential mechanisms,
Yeah.
and they all kind of hinge on the idea of pressure.
Makes sense, like GAD trying to find a way out.
Exactly. So one hypothesis is what they call pelvic pressure. Imagine your pelvic area as a container,
Okay.
and inside you've got your bladder, your intestines, all these organs kind of packed in together.
Right.
And when you cough, laugh, have sex, even just shift positions, the pressure in that container increases.
So it's got to go somewhere.
Exactly, like squeezing a balloon.
And the weakest point is?
Potentially the urethra, especially if those sphincter muscle, the ones that control the flow of urine, aren't working perfectly.
Like a leaky valve?
Exactly. So you've got this buildup of pressure, a weak spot, and boom.
Accidental toot.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Okay, so pelvic pressure is one suspect.
Yeah.
What about the other hypotheses?
Well, another one focuses on what happens after ejaculation.
Okay, this I gotta hear.
So after you ejaculate, there are these muscle contractions in the pelvic region.
Right.
And the paper suggests that those contractions, combined with any gas that might be lurking nearby, could lead to an unexpected expulsion of air.
Not exactly the grand finale most people are hoping for.
No, not really.
Okay, so we've got pressure from everyday movements, pressure from postcoital contractions. What else?
Well, the third possibility involves the bladder itself.
Okay.
You know that feeling when you chug a soda too fast and get a gassy stomachache?
Oh, yeah.
Well, sometimes that gas can actually end up in your bladder.
Really?
Yeah, it sounds weird, but it can happen. Same goes for things like acid reflux, even just swallowing air when you eat or talk.
So basically, stuff we do all the time could be contributing to this.
It's possible, yeah. And if that gas builds up in the bladder, sudden pressure changes could force it out through the urethra, just like we talked about before.
So it's like a perfect storm of unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, kind of. But what's interesting is that this raises questions about the bladder's connection to other systems in the body, like the digestive system.
It's all connected.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these three potential mechanisms. Pelvic pressure, post-ejaculation surprises, and gas building up in the bladder. But before we dive deeper into those, I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
The awkwardness factor.
Yeah, I mean, even talking about this is kind of weird, right?
Absolutely. It's not exactly dinner table conversation. But the social stigma surrounding this topic is actually a big part of the story.
Yeah, I mean, bodily functions in general are kind of taboo, but especially anything related to, well,
The nether regions.
Exactly. So even if this is happening to a lot of guys, they're probably not going to broadcast it.
Yeah, not exactly something you brag about.
No. And I think that reluctance to talk about it actually has some real consequences.
Like what?
Well, the paper mentions that men are way less likely than women to seek help for pelvic floor issues, even when those issues are causing, like, serious discomfort.
That's interesting. So this could all be tied to pelvic floor weakness.
It could be, yeah. Those muscles are super important for bladder control, bowel control, even sexual function.
And they can get weak over time.
They can. Age is a factor, obesity, surgery, even just lack of exercise. So something as simple as like doing Kegels could help prevent this.
Potentially, yeah. Strengthening those muscles is definitely a good thing.
I'm starting to see why this topic is like way more important than it seems at first glance.
It's not just about funny noises, that's for sure.
Right. There's a whole health aspect we haven't even touched on yet.
Exactly. Like, are there any other symptoms that might be related to this? Is there anything else our listeners should be aware of?
Yeah, good question. The paper mentions some potential health implications, right?
It did.
Yeah.
In most cases, if it's just happening occasionally, it's probably not a big deal.
Just a weird quirk.
Yeah. But if it's happening a lot, or if there's pain or burning or any difficulty urinating, that could be a sign of something more serious.
Like a UTI or something.
Yeah, possibly. Or another urological issue. So it's definitely worth talking to a doctor if you're experiencing any of that.
Okay, so red flags to watch out for. Anything else?
Well, the paper also mentioned that frequent or like uncontrolled gas release could be a sign of more serious pelvic floor dysfunction.
Oh, wow. Like what kind of dysfunction?
Well, it can lead to things like urinary incontinence
Mhm.
or even fecal incontinence in some cases.
That's not good.
No, it's not. So yeah, we really need to pay more attention to our pelvic floor health.
I'm definitely feeling that now.
Like any other muscle group, it needs to be exercised and taken care of.
So we've covered the anatomy, the potential causes, the social stigma, even some health implications. That's a lot.
It is. But before we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to the big picture.
Okay, yeah, good idea. Why does any of this even matter? Like, why should our listener care about penis farts beyond the initial, giggle factor?
Well, I think it shows how interconnected our bodies are. Like even something as weird as this can teach us about the digestive system, the urinary tract, the pelvic floor muscles.
It's all connected.
Exactly. And beyond the science, I think there's a message here about like destigmatizing bodily functions.
Yeah, being able to talk about this stuff openly.
Exactly. We all have bodies, and bodies do weird things sometimes. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Right, and knowledge is power, but only if we can actually talk about it.
Totally. And who knows, maybe by shining a light on this topic, we can encourage more research and actually help people who are struggling with these issues.
Okay, so big picture takeaway. Penis farts, weird as they are, can actually teach us a lot about our health and well-being.
That's a good way to put it.
But before we get too philosophical, I want to go back to something the paper mentioned. Everyday habits.
Okay.
We talked about how drinking soda can lead to gas buildup in the bladder, but are there other things we might be doing that could contribute to this without even realizing it?
It's a great question. The research on penis farts specifically is pretty limited, but there is some evidence that our modern lifestyle could be playing a role in pelvic health issues in general.
So like sitting for long periods, wearing tight clothing, even stress.
Exactly. All of that could be affecting our pelvic floor muscles in ways we don't even realize.
Sounds like we need a whole other deep dive just to unpack all of that.
We probably do. But for now, I think the main thing is awareness. Pay attention to your body, notice any changes, and don't be afraid to seek help if you need it.
Good advice. Expert, any final thoughts for our listener before we wrap things up?
Well, folks, we've gone deep, haven't we? From anatomy to accidental toots.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But I'm curious what stuck with you, dear listener. Like what really resonated, what surprised you, or maybe even made you think differently about your own, internal plumbing.
What really struck me is how something that seems, kind of silly can actually lead to some pretty serious questions about health.
Right. Like, we joke about it, but there's a real message here.
Absolutely. And it's not just about being open to talking about it, but about being, proactive about our health.
Yeah, like taking care of ourselves down there.
Exactly. We learned that strengthening those pelvic floor muscles is important, but then there's that whole other layer of, everyday habits.
Right. Like, where do we even start with that? It's a bit overwhelming. It is. And the research specifically on, penis farts is limited, but there's a growing body of evidence that our modern lifestyle might be contributing to a whole range of pelvic health problems.
So, all the stuff we talked about, sitting too much, tight clothes, stress, it's all connected.
It seems that way. We probably need 10 more deep dives just to scratch the surface.
Right. But for now, I guess it's about awareness, like you said before.
Yeah, paying attention to how your body feels, noticing any changes, not being afraid to talk to your doctor.
And remembering that even small things, like how much soda we drink or how often we get up and move, could be making a difference.
Exactly. It's a whole new way of thinking about our daily routines.
It really is. Well, expert, any final wisdom to impart before we sign off?
I think this deep dive has been a great example of, how curiosity can lead us to some unexpected places.
And sometimes those unexpected places are right below the belt.
Sometimes, yeah. But the point is, don't let the giggles or the stigma
Yo.
stop you from learning more about your body. Talk to your doctor, do your research, and listen to your body.
Words to live by. So, dear listener, we encourage you to keep exploring. Don't be afraid to ask questions, even if they seem, a little embarrassing.
Because sometimes the most, shall we say, delicate topics can lead to the most valuable insights.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we'll leave you with one final thought to ponder. If something as seemingly strange as penis farts can teach us so much about our bodies, what other hidden connections are out there just waiting to be discovered? Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep diving deep.